What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. Today I'm going to be looking at a couple of Reshizard variants from Sheffield. One that had some top 128 spots. I'm not sure if it actually had any day 2 spots. There are still a lot of lists missing on Limitless TCG from the tournament, and also Robin Schultz's top 8 list, and I'll be talking about the updates that I've made to these decks since then. So this is Robin Schultz's top 8, and we'll be starting with this. So Ability Zard is an archetype you should be fairly familiar with if you are competing in cups and preparing for regionals, but I will still go over most of the cards. So we have 4 Jirachi with Stellar Wish, and then the 3 Dedenne GX with Dede Change, and so these 7 cards are your draw support or like pseudo search with Jirachi. These are your draw support Pokemon, and 7 is actually a pretty hefty amount of draw support Pokemon in the current standard. So I really like that about this deck, that you have so many Pokemon that help you draw cards, and especially the Jirachi is a recurring effect that stays on the board. And then still continuing for support Pokemon, we have a 3-2 line of Ninetales with the 9 Temptations, which is our strongest gust effect in the game. Once during your turn, you may discard 2 Fire Energy cards from your hand. If you do, switch one of your opponent's benched Pokemon with their active. So Robin added in a 3rd Vulpix, likely just to counteract the aggressive catchering and gusting towards the Vulpix, and also the inclusion of Jinx in Malamar decks to try to snipe off the Vulpix before it can turn into Ninetales and cause problems. And then we have a lot of attackers in this deck, which I like. There are 3 single prize attackers, starting with Victini. Infinity does 20 damage for each basic energy in your discard pile, and then you shuffle those cards into your deck. I don't really like Victini an exuberant amount in this particular list. I do like Victini overall, but this list plays less energy than other variants of this that we've seen. So Infinity caps out at 220 damage, which is still a lot of damage for a single prizer, but it's not one-shotting the tag teams that we want it to. But it is still serving its purpose as of putting energy back into your deck. We've got Turtonator, Explosive Jet for 3 fire. Discard any amount of fire energy from all of your Pokemon. This attack does 50 damage for each card discarded in this way, so Explosive Jet can do a ton of damage. And then another attack that can do a ton of damage multiplied by 50. We have Fireball Circus on the Baby Blacephalon. Discard any number of fire energy cards from your hand. This attack does 50 damage for each card you discarded in this way. And since this deck plays 4 Fire Crystal, you can do a lot of damage with Fireball Circus. It's kind of nuts. But we'll get into what I think about some of these cards and the changes I made. Those are all of our single prize options and support Pokemon. And then we have the 1 Heatran GX, has that ability Burning Road that allows you to move fire energy to this when you switch. Steaming Stomp is pretty solid versus single prize attackers that you don't want to overextend against, and then Hot Burn GX can just switch a bunch of energy onto it, and then you Hot Burn GX for a huge knockout. And of course, the name of the deck, Reshizard, so we are actually playing 2 of these guys, but you like to attack with the single prizers and the Heatran when able, and not just throw a tag team out there, which most decks are trying to prepare to knock out. So the Outrage attack 30 plus 10 more for each damage on Reshi. Flare Strike 230 for 4 energy, and then Double Blaze 200 for 3, or if you have 6 fire energy, it does 300 and it goes through all effects. So a lot of very powerful attacks and powerful abilities. There are just a lot of very strong things going on in this archetype. I'll be pretty brief on the trainers. I don't exactly like the reset stamp in Ability Reshi. Since this deck you're dumping your hand away a lot, and something like Reset Stamp you won't always find at the opportune times. And you're also usually taking a nice lead with this deck. You're playing very aggressively. And I personally, when I play aggressive decks like this, I want to just focus on taking all my prizes, and I feel like I can just disrupt the opponent by bringing up things and knocking them out rather than reset stamping them. The 4 Fire Crystal, which I touched on, was something that was not played in this version of the deck at Worlds by Tord Reklev, but now there are Fire Crystals in it. Fiery Flint, 4 switches, 4 Welder, of course, which is the only supporter. Then we have the Pal Pad. So more switches, 4 Fire Crystals have been added. Looks like they were going for more consistency, and then also using Fire Crystals for their energy instead of just playing 18 energy to get around Wobbuffet techs, which Wobbuffet stops Prism Pokemon from attacking, and that would stop Victini from attacking. So I think they wanted to get around that, and also Fire Crystal goes really well with Blacephalon's Fireball Circus. So that is the top 8 version of Ability Zard from Sheffield, and this is the list with the changes I have made. The Pokemon line stays exactly the same in my updated version of the list, except I did cut 1 Vulpix. It's the hardest cut I made and the one I like the least, but I did want to add some cards. So I was able to fit in 3 Fire Energy. And that's the total change of the deck, really. The deck is really, really good as is. I just wanted to have more Fire Energy, and I kept the 4 Fire Crystals. So now Victini goes up to a damage cap of 280 if there are 14 energy in your discard pile and 2 on Victini. And the Fire Crystals and the Fireball Circus from Blacephalon are even easier to get off with all this energy in the deck, and it actually makes me almost want a second Blacephalon. The Blacephalon has been very good in my testing so far, but other than that, I have kept this list the same. I just cut the 4th switch, I cut the 3rd Vulpix, and I cut the reset stamp, which I did mention on the last list I did not particularly like in this deck. So I cut Vulpix, the 4th switch, and the reset stamp for 3 more Fire Energy. Pretty simple, but the changes made a lot of difference in my opinion. On to the other variant we're going to talk about. This one was shared on Twitter by Sean Maher, or Maher, and I believe it was also played by some members of CCG Complexity Card Gaming. I believe Jack Old played it as well and finished in top 128, but I cannot say that it was this exact list. This is the exact list I saw shared by Sean Maher, and I was pretty interested in it. So it's the same Ability Zard concept. We got the 4 Jirachi, the 3 Dedenne, the 2/2 Ninetales, the Victini, the Turtonator, the Heatran. Only 1 Reshizard in the Reshizard deck. And then you'll see that we have 2 Mewtwo Mews, which can copy the attacks of Reshizard and Heatran, and also a couple other GX Pokemon put into this deck, so that's why there's only 1 Reshizard. The new Charizard GX from Hidden Fates that has Flare Blitz that does 300 for only 4 energy, which is kind of bonkers, but that's what it does. It doesn't get through effects like Double Blaze does, but it can sure as heck knock something big out for just 4 energy. Mewtwo can copy that, so this is an evolution Pokemon. You just throw it in your discard and copy it with Mewtwo. And then also Magcargo, you can copy this with Mewtwo. Lava Flow, discard any amount of basic energy from this Pokemon. This attack does 50 more damage for each card you discarded in this way. So it is kind of combined Mewtwo box with Ability Zard, keeping the skeleton of Ability Zard and throwing in the bit of the Mewtwo stuff. And then this list also had a Tapu Fini for Blacephalon. Nature Wave can swing for 100 for just the colorless energy if your opponent has any Ultra Beasts in play. And we'll see they had 16 energy, but only 1 Fire Crystal. And then they also played 3 Acrobike, I guess, to bump up their draw power just a bit. But we're going to head over into my updated version of this Reshizard Mew variant. And you'll see that I have taken out the Tapu Fini, and I've also taken out the Acrobikes, because I've been liking regular ability Reshizard just fine without the Acrobikes, so I figured I would try this one without it as well. I have fit in more Fire Crystal and the Blacephalon with the space I made by cutting the 3 Acrobikes and the Tapu Fini. I think with these 3 single prize attackers, all this energy Fire Crystals to synergize with Blacephalon and Victini, the energy, namely with Victini, and then the fire crystals, namely with Blacephalon, you're able to have a fine matchup versus Blacephalon. Obviously, Tapu Fini is a huge swing card for that matchup, but I don't necessarily think it's necessary to win that matchup whatsoever. And those are the, again, fairly simple changes I made. So I cut the 3 Acro Bike and the Tapu Fini for the Blacephalon and the 3 extra fire crystal. Sorry, it's taken me a second. We were looking through all these lists. I was about to say reset stamp again. But yeah, so this Mew3, I'm not sure what you want to call it, just ability Zard with some Mew splashed in. I like the versatility that it gives, but I have not gotten to work with this one as much as I have with the prior one that I showed, the new updates I've made to Robin Schultz's top 8 list. This one just feels so clean. Like, it's just been working out very well for me. I love the amount of single prize Pokemon. It kind of reminds me of Pikarom when it was at its high point last season with the multiple Zapdos and how much you could do with the Zapdos before you even got to Pikarom. Or even something like Vika when it had the Delmise and the I'm not sure, no, not Shaman Prism, Delmise and Shining Lugia. Just, I really love the idea of having this huge amount of damage deck with GX and tag team Pokemon, but you also have single prize attackers that can actually match or even go farther than the damage output of the GX Pokemon. So that's it from me today. I will post the lists for all 4 of these decks, actually. I'll just put them into a Google Sheet for you guys and put that in the description of the video. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video today on these 2 kind of different variants of Ability Zard. Be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Check out my live streams on Twitch and visit flipsidegaming.com, where I write free articles and you can get 10% off in the store with code CELIO, all caps. I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.